Hello everyone. I'll be touching on prepayments and accruals in this video. Okay, so for the first part of this video, I'll be touching on prepaid expenses and accrued expenses. How I like to remember them, okay, is actually for prepaid expenses, okay, it is pay first, use later. Okay, for prepaid expenses, it is pay first, use later. So for accrued expenses, it is the exact opposite, okay? So it's use first, then you pay later. Okay, so use first, pay later. Okay, so for this kind of questions, okay, the most important question you want to ask yourself is, when is it incurred? Okay, a lot of people ask me, okay, Mr. Lee, what is incurred? Okay, they do not understand the word incurred. Okay, incurred simply means used. When is it used? Okay, so let's say we are talking about utilities expenses. Okay, when is it incurred? Okay, when is it used? Okay, so for utilities expenses, when did you use the water? When did you use the electricity? Okay, so this is what we mean by incurred. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, okay, so for any kind of questions, I like to draw the timeline. Okay, the timeline. The timeline actually helps you. I know a lot of students, they don't like to draw the timeline. You know, maybe it makes them look stupid, or it is very uncool to draw the timeline. I can just straight away read off on the question and attempt the question. Okay, no, even for me, sometimes I will still use the timeline, okay, to make the question clearer for myself. Okay, you will understand what I'm doing, okay, later on in this video. Okay, so for any timeline, okay, they will always ask you to prepare the financial statements, okay, on the last day of the financial period. Okay, so let's say we are using the year 2015. Okay, the last day of my period is 31st December. Okay, that will make my first day of the financial period 1st January 2015. Okay, and then what I'll do next is I will name this period period 1, period 2, and period 3. Okay, what do I mean by the 1, 2, 3? Okay, so period 1, okay, it refers to the financial period before 1st of January. Okay, in other words, okay, period 1 is last year. Okay, so period 2 is the financial period that we are in. Okay, we are interested in number 2. Okay, we want number 2. Okay, so number 2, in other words, number 2 is this year. Okay, so that will make number 3 next year. Okay, the period after our financial period, next year. Okay, so next year. Okay, so let's say for any kind of questions that you will meet, okay, I'm sure most of you have gone through some of the questions now. Okay, they will normally give you an opening balances. Okay, I know a lot of you don't like opening balance. Okay, me too. Okay, I do not like the opening balance. Okay, that is why we have to draw the timeline to ask ourselves this important question. Okay, so what do I mean? Okay, opening balance. Let's settle prepaid expenses first. Okay, so prepaid expenses, okay, there is a 10,000 debit opening balance. Okay, so for prepaid, okay, I'll draw a blue color star here. Okay, so if the question gives you an opening balance of prepaid expenses $10,000, okay, the most important question to ask is, when is it incurred? Okay, let's take a look at our explanation of prepaid expenses. That is what I explained at the start of the video. You pay first, use later. Okay, so for this opening balance, when did you pay? If you pay first, okay, it is very clear. Okay, if you have an opening balance of prepaid expenses, it is paid in period 1. Okay, paid in period 1. That's why this year we label it prepaid expenses, because we have paid last year. It is prepaid last year. Okay, so for prepaid expenses, it is pay first. Okay, so we paid here, use later. Okay, so use later, which means that the expenses are used in period 2. Okay, that is why prepaid expenses we are interested in. Okay, because it is this year. Okay, we want it this year. Okay, so how you actually write it is, the questions will always ask you, okay, please prepare the expense account and then the prepaid expense account. Okay, so when you are preparing the expenses account, do you want the prepaid Do you want this 10,000? Yes, you want, okay, because it is in period 2, we want it, okay. That's why you will plus it into your expense ledger account, okay. So let's look at accrued expenses now, okay. Let's look at accrued expenses. I'll draw a green color star here, okay. Let's look at accrued expenses. Let's say they give you an opening balance of accrued expenses 10,002, okay, and we know that accrued expenses, it is a credit balance, okay. So accrued expenses opening balance, let's ask ourselves the important question again: when is it incurred? Okay, so for accrued expenses, let's look at the meaning. It is use first, pay later. Use first, pay later. So if we have accrued expenses here, when did we use the expense? Okay, if we use first, okay, use first, it means that we have used it in period 1, okay, it is here, period 1, okay, and then we pay this year, okay. That is what we mean by accrued expenses, okay. You use first, then you pay later. That's why in period 2 this year we are paying it, okay. A lot of people ask me, okay, so what does it mean by how do you know that when you see an opening balance of accrued expenses, how do you know that it is incurred last year? Okay, let me solve this question for you. Okay, an easy way to explain this is, if you never use, you will never owe the money. Am I right? Okay, so if you never use the expense, how come you will owe the money? Okay, it is the same thing in real life. Okay, if you never use your phone, why would you owe the M1, StarHub or Singtel the phone bill money, right? Okay, so if you never use, you will never owe. So if you owe, it might mean that you have used it already. Okay, so for when we are preparing our expense account again, okay, when we have an opening balance of accrual expenses, do we want it in the expense? No. That's why you will credit your expense account. Okay, so I've actually covered in general, okay, the 2 expenses account that you will find in prepayments and accruals. Okay, so I'll see you in the next video.